obviously we're all Christians, and I would like to know, what does a godly relationship look like as Christians living in this world? Because I feel like, based on the things that we see on social media, relationships nowadays look like it's all about sex, and you hear the word toxic often, that this and that is toxic, she's toxic, and all of that. And a lot also, apparently, in a lot of relationships, the people are cheating. And so, what does a godly relationship look like?
That is a very, it sounds easy, but it's a very complicated question. But let me take God out. I'll bring him back in.
Okay,
God,
do that.
give me, I'll bring him back in. One thing that is very, very, for me at least, okay, it doesn't mean what I'm saying is right,
Of
but
course,
what
of
I strongly believe in is that you cannot have God without relationship. It is impossible. You can't say I believe in God and I trust in God without having a relationship with God. Okay?
Yeah.
So if you ask me about a godly relationship, what is your relationship between you and God? That is what a godly relationship is supposed to be. God, I hear often people say, and I'm praying for a husband, I'm praying for a wife. And I say, yes, it is good to pray, but God is not going to tell you that is your wife or that is your husband. He has given you the measurements to measure who a godly person is. You understand what I'm saying? There
Yeah.
are times God would show you. There are people who say, yeah, I saw her. I have friends. I know one. He met his wife the first and said, I'm going to marry you. And today they are married for, what, 13 years? You know, there are people who know that. But the question is, that is why we have the Bible. So if you are asking me about godly relationship, okay, what is your relationship with God? God is a holy God. He doesn't look like holy. So if your relationship with God is based on a solid foundation, you don't want to disappoint God. And out of that disappointment, you find somebody who occupies your positive energy within God's space.
Okay.
If you give me the opportunity, I can try to break it down.
Break it down.
So where did the woman find the man? In the garden. In the presence of God. All right?
Right.
Yeah.
She found him in the presence of God. When you read the book of Genesis, it says every evening God would come in the garden and da 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 da. He was in the, in the space of God. All right? Now, any man who doesn't belong is lost. When I say belong, any man who doesn't know his source,
His home,
his source of power,
Yeah.
his source of
Yeah.
of authority, his source of ownership, he's lost because then he doesn't have a vision. But a man who is connected to a higher source always knows where to go to be re-inspired. And because he, like you said, a holy union, or how do you put
Godly
the question?
relationship.
A godly relationship, okay? Because he is connected to God, he's not going to force you to do things that goes out of God's space. That is the foundation. Without that, everything that comes afterwards, it doesn't work. You know the scripture where it says God is the head, loves your wife.
Yeah.
Yes,
I don't want
yes,
to go, so the foundation has to be right. The seed has to be right. When the seed is wrong, you're not going anywhere. I mean, we can talk about the fornication and all this, but before we even come there, the person who is in the presence of God doesn't want to disappoint God. It doesn't mean he doesn't feel weakness. Of course, he feels weakness. Sometimes she comes in her beauty and but yes. You are human. I mean, come on. She's a woman. So you want to go a step further. But you have to restrict yourself at a certain point because somebody, I bear a mark of somebody. So for me, I think that is the foundation. Every other thing comes afterwards. And what comes afterwards is what builds character. And that is where we have the real problem.